Welcome to the Artfluence Podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Kirkan, your host, and with me, as usual, is my business partner and co-host, Paul Fatkins. Hey, Paul.
Okay, good afternoon. How are things?
I'm fantastic. I am motivated, and I have plenty of things to do to keep me occupied.
Yeah, I know. Well, and today's little chat is going to be maybe not fun, but definitely interesting, because I think it's a lot of things that people don't necessarily consider up front, and that leads to issues down the road.
100%. I think a lot of us are focused on the costs of things now, and we're not thinking about the future. So basically, we're going to be running through a bunch of topics that can potentially sabotage your project if proper planning and consideration isn't thought about.
Yeah. So I want to start at the very beginning. All right. So somebody calls us up. They say, "Hey, I want to work with you guys. I got some great ideas," and they dump just a ton of like photos on you from a Pinterest board, or these days maybe they're using like an AI generation tool or something, and they're just like, "Here's everything I want. It's 20 different images of, make this reality."
Yes.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's complex, because they're showing us finishes that they like, and they don't want to pay for interior design necessarily. And what they really need to start with, or what they want, is a permit set of drawings.
Well, it's also not consideration of space and layout and flow. It's just an image of a finished thing, and sometimes it's like a detail shot of something.
I mean, I think,
like you said, like it's a beautiful backsplash in a kitchen, right?
I do think it's a good start for conceptual design discussion, and even when we get to the interior package of things, and we need to do interior elevations and tile layouts and all those considerations. But yeah, it's not actual life, right? And it doesn't take into account the functionality, space planning aspect. You're kind of skipping steps.
Well, and I would say, the warning or the thing to be aware of, like you may really love something that you see in this imagery, but again, like your space might be fairly unique. There might be some characteristic on your property that we have to work around. And whatever image that you've fallen, I have to have this, right, might just not be reality. It might not be possible based on the special circumstance of your property.
Or your lifestyle. Or you may have kids, pets, dogs. So there's a number of different things that will come into play, which actually this can bleed into all the other topics.
Yeah. And this is why I wanted to start with it. And obviously when you first start working with somebody on designing something, I mean, that's usually the first question. What do you want? What's your desires? What's your list of things that you want to use the space for, or, whatever it might be. It's like that conversation is what is leading the entire design process.
Yeah. And we also need to have the conversation too, is like, what's the priority also? Because sometimes we can't have everything, but we can have anything. We just need to pick and choose what that thing is and make that the focal point.
Yeah. And again, it just might depend on, circumstances. I would say, maybe to alleviate some of that, pain point in the beginning, have us out for a design consultation. Like if you use the link on our website to book us, Nick will come out and have the conversation in the space with you and walk through things. And even at the end of the day, let's say you don't move forward with us, you still have a meaningful conversation that might give you some insight and guidance on what to do, versus just looking at a picture that looks beautiful and okay, but then how does it actually apply to your space and your property?
I agree. And strategy of the property comes into play too. So if depending on how you're going to be using the property, makes a big difference on how much time and thought we want to put into this. Some things we can assume and do a standardization, but the thought of good architecture still needs to be present for the specific user, as well as the flexibility of them in the future and potential occupants or people who buy that property later.
Yeah. All right. So I think we've covered that one. Now I want to move on to the next one. So, obviously there's initial conversations, but, let me ask you, like, if somebody maybe they even have a set of drawings that somebody else has done, and they come to us and they say,
or they downloaded off the internet from the 1990s
or wherever, right? They've gone 3, 4, 5 steps down this process by themselves or with a couple other people or whatever the case may be. And they come to you after the tree has already been planted and growing for a couple of years. And they say, you excited to come on board and help us?
Here's my drawings. The city's saying
Yeah.
I need to show plumbing clearances and equipment
Yeah,
placement.
and I need you to stamp this and sign off on it. And
Yeah.
So I think that's another, people don't realize that if you're going to spend the time to go through this whole process, I mean, you want to do it from day one and not, midstream or towards the end. I mean, it's difficult for us to come in.
I'll say this. Sometimes it's not.
It's just
not
difficult,
but
it's not ideal.
Yeah, but it's not the client's fault in all cases. Sometimes we're dealt a certain situation and we have to pivot and find the solution.
Sure.
Right?
I've heard a lot of people talk about assembling the team, right? The right group of people in the bus. You want to get them in the right seats. So yeah, you want to have a realtor and a contractor, an architect, designer, interior designer. You want to have all these people lined up and working, as you go through this process. You don't want to go too far down the road and then try to pull in people here and there.
So what happens if we do find ourselves in this position? What's the game plan?
I mean, unfortunately, sometimes you might have to backtrack from some decisions that don't quite make sense, or maybe again, like everybody looks at something differently. So maybe there's some new set of eyes, like you and I come into it, and there's something that we see that we'll point out to the client, like, hey, did you ever think about this? And they might be like, no, we didn't. And then again, we might change course and backtrack on something. Sometimes even like the client has actually done work. And, again, it then becomes a condition that you have to work around.
And that makes it very difficult because they've already invested and they're
in labor and materials.
Yeah. And they're at this point, they may not have the funds to go back. So now we have to proceed where we're at and what's the best option or solution from this point on moving forward.
I mean, I think our job is always to give our insight and opinion when we see something. Like, we're going to call a spade a spade. If we see something, we're going to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. At the end of the day, whether they want to backtrack or change course or whatever, right, that's their decision to make. Obviously, they have certain desires and wants and needs too, which is perfectly fine. But, again, like, I think we're not doing our job if we don't at least give them some insight to things,
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I'm very open and flexible to the idea of whatever it is that they've taken to whatever point,
Yes. So seek out your team and the proper professionals in advance.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise you could go down a rabbit hole that takes you to a path where you're just shooting yourself in the foot, sort of thing.
Yeah. And I don't want to knock these large these production builders. But a lot of stuff is in-house and there's some advantages to that in terms of cost savings, but you also are limiting to their specific, designs based on a few options for you. So, I mean, it really depends on what you want and where you're at in your life and what your situation is. Again, it can, if it's an investment property, like that changes the game too. It's a different conversation.
Yeah. And I think we'll touch on that in a little bit towards the end, but, all right. So let's say we get into layout, right? We've been hired. We're starting the design process. What are some things that people are easy to lose sight of, or just some things to consider?
They want to maximize space at all costs, even if it means getting rid of natural light and functionality. Like, we'll have people request just one large room that doesn't really have much of a use, right? That it's just, we need to be thoughtful about how we're using the space, what our experience is from the space, how it's going to make us feel.
Or they want to have like a conversion of an attic or a basement, I would think is like the number one thing. Because like you said, they're more concerned about the square footage number and, I want to add another 1,000 square feet to my property, right? For whatever reason, for value, for, assessment purposes, et cetera. It's like, okay. But if it's a basement where you have these tiny windows, or maybe you only have one egress window in the basement and that's it, and then like everything else is just these tiny windows that are up high, like a little, 1.5 by 3 foot window or something, it just doesn't. It's not an inviting space to be in.
Or they may enclose a porch, which changes the way the space is used. Sometimes it works out.
Yeah.
But it needs to be a thoughtful process on, natural lighting, flow, function, etc.
Yeah. Well, and the church project, the church conversion we did in Marysville.
Yeah.
So obviously that project, we added 4 decently sized dormers, not over
and the second floor.
Yeah, not oversized. But I mean, like, had you just gone in there and added a second floor, right, and used the square footage that was there, it would have been a terrible space.
Yeah.
It would have been terrible to occupy and to do anything up there. So obviously they also wanted bedrooms and other functions up there. So it's like, of course, you absolutely need a window for egress and other stuff. But I mean, like, we really maximized the dormer size. One, so the windows could be fairly large, let in a lot of natural light, and you get a view to the outside. But then also that bigger footprint of the dormer really opened up the floor plan. So it's like you were maximizing the square footage too.
Yeah. No,
So-
and of course,
But had you just done the floor, it would have been terrible.
yeah, and that had a commission, so we also had to be thoughtful about that process. I wanted to do larger dormers, but at the end of the day,
I think we landed on a good balance,
Yeah.
a good compromise between getting like natural light and other function or other things into the space along with the square footage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was definitely a good compromise. And that one, I mean, like, the whole experience of, just circulating around, and I love the way the stairs wrap actually up and around.
I know, and around
So-
the entry.
Yeah, so because it had a steeple, I wish the steeple would have remained
Well, of
open all the way to the
Of
top.
course, we advised on that, and
Yeah, that would have been so cool.
cost.
So cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
But
But I mean, like, the stairs actually wrap around the one side and then up and then up. So it's like you get this tier. There's a couple of landings, and it's like this tiered ascension into the second level. So
and what were the ceiling heights on the first floor? There was it 12
no,
or 13?
They were like 15. It was
Were they that
they were
tall?
really tall.
Yeah, it was epic
really
space.
tall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was previously a church,
Right.
And then upstairs was nothing,
Right.
but it had a very steep pitch. So I mean, like, there was a lot of vertical space in the center, and then the dormers added the additional. But yeah, just even like when you walk in and like the flow with the office that's there and the kitchen and
Well-
how everything is laid out, you basically have like these 2 massive, and everything's kind of open. We just had one wall.
But going back to our natural light here on sacrificing,
Yeah.
that steeple would have been an amazing light core.
Yeah.
And then brought that light down in the entry, and your entryway would have been 35-foot
Yeah.
entry, and then the stairs literally wrap around it. Like, what a cool experience.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like, the flow, I think, again, like, people tend to discount or think about flow secondly. But I mean, like, we had that one central wall that had all the appliances on the one side with the island and the kitchen. And it's like you're just flowing around, like, from kitchen to living room. And it was accessible from both sides. So you could do a loop.
So it's basically one space, but it had that divider wall that separated
Yeah.
the space and made it
TV
very
was on,
functional.
yeah, and TV was on
Yeah.
the wall so you still have wall space to use, and we kept the wall central, away from all the windows. I mean, like, again, just the layout and the thoughtfulness we put into that particular project. Like, obviously, I'm talking about it a little bit because we went out recently to take some photos of it, but yeah, like, when you see the finished product, like, we definitely hit a home run on that one, I have to say.
Well, we kind of touched on the next one: poor flow and circulation.
Well, again, like, I think people get set on, I want my kitchen in this area, right? And they don't think about getting to and from the kitchen and navigating around. Again, like, certain things need wall space,
Yeah.
period. Like, if you have a TV center, you need wall space for it. All your kitchen cabinetry and stuff like that, like, you need to have wall space for it.
I'm also, and this has come.
You can't have it be open everywhere.
Yeah, and this school of thought has come later in my career, but I really try to eliminate hallways and corridors because it is, unless it's absolutely necessary, and if we do have to have those connection points, I want it to be. I don't want it to be code minimum of 3 feet. I want it to feel comfortable. I want it to be accessible. I want to be able to age in this home and be comfortable with that too. So, but because it's not necessarily something that we can utilize in space, and still have, especially if there's utility in the hallway, like trying to find a balance of natural light and utility in those spaces is a challenge in some cases.
Well, I mean, obviously, the other thing to think about too, just like your door swings, right? If you have something that swings out into a hallway and your hallway is already tight, you know, now you're impeding whatever other function is. You know, maybe someone needs to get by when you're doing laundry, and you have a door for the laundry that's open because you have to access the laundry unit.
And this is much more common in old housing stock or commercial buildings.
Yeah. So I mean, like even something as simple as door swings and how that impacts your flow, you know, and like how you're navigating the space. What you see is you enter into, you know, a bathroom, for example. Maybe the door can hide your toilet and you get the view to the vanity, and that door swinging into a certain direction, right, is helping you conceal whatever you don't want to see front and center when you first enter that space.
Yep.
So yeah, unless your kids are good about leaving the toilet seat down and all that kind of stuff. So that's something I'm always telling my son. So it's like,
Well, that's why I have bathrooms in every bedroom.
yeah.
You know, you got to be responsible for your own toilet.
Yeah, he does. He has his own, but I mean, like, he'll come use whatever one he wants to use. And then, yeah, I come in afterwards. I'm like, okay, come on, buddy.
There you go. Okay. I like this next one. Essentially, trends and choosing the right materials that are not based on something that's going to be popular, right? I guess being thoughtful on what type of materials we're using. No,
Well, just because it's something everybody's doing, like, do you want to be doing it? And then maybe a year or two from now, it's like nobody's doing it anymore, just because it doesn't, like barn doors. Like, how many barn doors did we see a certain period of time?
everywhere.
Yeah. And it's like this Midwestern trend where everybody was doing it.
And the South. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's like nobody was doing it.
You know,
now if you go into a space that has all these barn doors, you're like,
It's dated.
It's a little dated. Yeah.
And
it was only a couple years ago.
I think I like to look at the coasts because they typically are a couple of years ahead, and what's happening there typically makes its way to everywhere else.
Yeah.
So design trends there, but there's also design trends that are classic and timeless, right?
Sure. Look at, and I mean, like also like other countries too tend to lead in certain respects with design. Like Italian design has always been like top class, you know. So certain things that they're doing, you can definitely look to for inspiration.
Yeah.
So they're usually, like you said, or the coast, like they're usually ahead of the curve to where it serves as the foundation for all of these trends that are people are then picking up on and starting to implement.
And if we're talking about like we do have color trends that happen, and I think that the psychology of color really doesn't change that much, but there might be color trends that influence you to be bold and be different, or paint the baseboards the same color as the wall and these type of things. I think that is a lot more forgivable because certain materials can be painted and changed, right? So there's some items that have more forgiveness than others. And like if we're talking about door hardware or cabinet hardware or other things, you know.
Yeah, if you have like solid black cabinets, that's going to be hard to change down the road without some major intensive work, you know. It's not like painting a wall, right? Or like removing some wallpaper or something.
Yeah.
That's dramatic.
I also, if you have pink travertine tile in your bathroom, you know, that's hard to change too. We did a lot of that in the 90s.
Yeah, we've seen some homes with like baby blue porcelain.
Yeah.
Like what? Like robin egg blue or something, or like orange, like Halloween orange.
So
countertops. I mean,
I don't mind little pops of color like that.
It just depends on how it's done and where it's done, but if it's like everywhere you turn, it's like
correct. But
too much.
But if it's like, hey, I'm also a proponent of layering, like architecture and design, right? I like to see different layers. I like the space to tell a story about the occupant and the designer, and kind of like, so if you have like this one unique piece that's old, that's totally fine and acceptable, and you can also swap it out later. But if the whole house is saying the same thing, like and having these repeated elements of an era, I think that's where the pitfall comes.
Yeah. Well, and it's like you can pick and, like, obviously if you're doing a renovation or update, it's like you can pick and choose what character you want to carry forward. You don't have to, you know, preserve what's there and carry everything forward.
Well, take finishes out of the equation. So even where kitchens were in the past, kitchens were very small, right? And closed off from the rest of the house. now we're seeing that didn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Because we're living differently now, right? So there's some trends that are becoming culture.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even, in the 90s, there would be a floor plan where you draw your triangle between your workspace and
the kitchen triangle.
Yeah. Your refrigerator where you're always grabbing your food, and your cooktop. And
listen, that still applies to a certain degree. It's just not a rule anymore. Right. I feel like too, like our appliance package has grown. So, I mean, we can talk about the kitchen for a second. The way we design our kitchens are much bigger. There's social interaction in kitchens. There's islands to be sat at. There's tables to be sat at. There's communication going on while we're preparing our meals. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of changes that's happened in the kitchen.
When I think people don't think about, so it's like, it's not just as simple as, 3 places and you connect between the 3, connect the dots, right? It's like there's different zones within a kitchen that you plan for. But, even if it's like an appliance area that's concealed to hide all the clutter that's on the countertop, or, you call it the appliance garage, or or whatever, butler's pantry.
Well, you can have both. You can have the appliance garage is most of the time in the butler's pantry, and the butler's pantry consists of many more amenities. But yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have these different zones to utilize within the kitchen, your kitchen becomes a lot more usable and a lot less impractical. Because if you're just, going with these 90s ideas of, design thought of laying your kitchen out, you're going to run into some issues down the road.
I like having
people bumping into each other,
You're absolutely right. Yeah. The zones are important. And I like to separate. I like to have like a mini kitchen that's an extension of my main kitchen. The main kitchen is going to be where we're preparing. It's more of a showpiece.
Especially if you like to entertain.
Exactly.
And have guests. It's nice to have, even if it's just a buffet surface.
Even if you don't like to entertain.
Well, if you don't like to entertain, you don't need a buffet.
But my point is if you're being thoughtful about this, you're going to add value to your home, and when you go to sell your home, you're gonna be thankful that you thought about this. Yeah, the buyers are going to appreciate it.
Yeah, especially if the buyer is an entertainer, right? I guess if the space is designed in a way that it's flexible for a larger audience, then
or just flexible for a chef. So there's a bunch of things to consider.
Yeah. All right, so we've talked a lot about like the kitchen, for example, living space, and a couple other spaces, bedrooms. What have we not talked about though? I'm leading you on here.
You are.
Yeah. Entry point.
Yes.
So I think that's, people get wrapped up in, well, I'm going to spend.
I was going to talk about lighting. But let's talk about the entry.
Well, we can talk about, include the lighting in that discussion too. But I think people get hung up on the cost of like the kitchen renovation, where they're going to spend, maybe they're doing a whole renovation of the first level, and the kitchen is eating half of their budget.
Eating all their budget, yeah.
Or a large portion of it. Yeah. And so they just focus on it so intensely. And they don't think about, like the one house we designed out on, was it Buckeye Lake? What was the lake house? Where we moved
Choctaw.
So we moved the entry point just because it made so much more sense to relocate that entry door. And you walk in and have this wonderful view straight out to the lake.
The view hits you right in the face.
Living room off to the side, through the kitchen. You catch a corner of the kitchen. Versus you're like wrapping around the side entry pocket, whatever it was, foyer.
And am I lost?
Yeah. It's like you're looking at a hallway and a bedroom. Basically, that's what you were looking at versus you're looking out to the lake. Yeah. And it made so much sense just to relocate that door. And when we suggested that, I just remember the reaction of the client. They were like, oh, why didn't, wow, that's such a great, because I think people get focused on, well, I'm spending half of my budget on the kitchen or whatever. And they just forget about these little things like where you enter the space from and what that experience is when you enter it.
And the entry is super important because this is an experience, right? So your first impression is the curb appeal. Your next impression is moving into the home, and you want to get a mixture of a little peek of views to have that curiosity, that anticipation, but you also want to see some beautiful money shots of it and like wow. So you want to be like, this is amazing, but there's more.
Well, and the other thing too, it's like when you have, shoes and coats and you have kiddos and dogs and, you enter in, you got to, it's nice to have a place for some of that stuff.
Sure.
So again, like you just might not think about it because you're so focused on the big ticket items, right? The big high cost items. And you just invest all your time into looking at that. And you just forget about all the smaller nuanced stuff that honestly like impacts how you enter and flow through the space and into your kitchen that you are spending all the money on, or living room or whatever.
I will say this
entertainment
too.
area.
Most houses have 2 entry points, right? So if you're in the inner city and you have a detached garage in back, you're coming in in the back through like a mudroom or something. Go ahead.
And if you don't have 2 entry points, maybe you should consider adding another one so you have more.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, you also got to realize like, you're going to have guests probably come through a different entry point than what you come through. And so we need to be thoughtful about both places.
Yeah.
If you and your kids are coming through the garage or through the back of the house because the garage is attached, there should be utility, and function with the mudroom that can then house the stuff and be thoughtful in terms of, for you and your family. But your guests aren't going to come in that right way, right? They're going to come in the front entry most likely.
Yeah.
This is going to be more of an experience, right? You'll still have some utility with the closet where we can put coats away and stuff, but it's not going to be this hodgepodge of stuff either, right? That's going to be an experience where we're coming into the space, we're getting an impression of this amazing home, and it's going to lead us to that next space, right?
Well, so what was the lighting? I agree with you 100%. Yeah. But I'm going to go back. So what was the lighting one? Are you talking like actual lights or not natural light?
Not natural light. So
we already talked about that.
So we're talking about primary lighting, tertiary lighting, and just the placement of outlets and the functionality of these things too. So I like to have dimmers on everything, right? I want to have control of my lighting. I want to have some uplighting maybe in my crown molding in the kitchen, or some downlighting underneath the cabinets.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with the dimmers. Like if it's a cloudy, rainy, miserable day out, I crank that all the way up, top level, maximum brightness during the day, and then when it goes into the evening, halfway or even lower. Like I go all the way down to like 10-20%. It's like a real chill environment.
And if you have a smart house, I love this feature in my home. You can actually program it to react to the time of day and the sunset, and it can increase in intensities, right? As depending on what time it is. So you can program all of that.
Yeah, like with a light sensor for the outdoor natural light.
Yeah.
It's actually not. It's not quite this. It was Cicadia.
Right.
Whatever it is, lighting. It's not quite that, but I mean, like, just something simple as the sensor that will automatically adjust the light level.
Yeah. And we don't really have to worry about light tones so much these days. Like there's obviously, we can get into, light intensity and candles and all that other stuff, but I like a warm light in the main space. I stay away from daylight unless we're like in the basement of the garage.
Yeah.
But I also want to bring up about lighting too, is there's opportunities to not just the function of light and lighting spaces and setting the mood, but also the opportunity to have an incredible light fixture, like a point of wow, right? So like, where are our opportunities to have an amazing fixture? Is it over the island with 2 amazing pendants, or is it a chandelier over the dining area? Like where can we have an opportunity to put some money into some really nice lighting, and then keep it relatively simple and clean in other places where it's more functional and we're focusing on the architecture, right?
Well, and like you said, there's layers to it. So you might have the showstopper, one-off, whatever fixture, but then your other fixtures can be more secondary and in the background. And then you have ones that just like give you some lighting to do whatever task, or it's the tertiary, third level. So yeah, it's like you can play. It's not like everything has to be over the top. So.
We review all our lighting plans with our clients, but we have standards that we typically gravitate to, or there's certain things where we're like, there's code that we're going to have to satisfy. But I also want to, wherever we're thinking about bed placement, and if we don't know the bed placement, then we mock up bed placement on both walls or all walls that we're considering, and we flank the bed with 2 outlets.
Yeah.
So we put a couple extra outlets in to accommodate change if we decide to do that, because I want an outlet behind all of our side tables and nightstands.
Yeah. This next one is one of your pet peeves.
Uh-oh.
So, well, I mean, in general, it talks about window placement blunders, but for you, you are, I don't want to say like a huge symmetry person, but you definitely call out a lot of things where you're like, oh, we need to line it up, like line those two things up. And you're like, it's off by like half an inch. You're like, yeah, line it up.
I
or oh, the
appreciate-
outside. Oh, we have one window here. We need another one here.
Listen, we don't always have to be symmetrical.
Yeah.
Sometimes asymmetrical, design makes more sense, but sometimes it doesn't. So we just have to play that by ear.
Yeah. I would just say, like we talked a little bit about natural light. I would say the other thing to factor in when you're placing windows and stuff too, where the sun rises, where the sun sets. Is it a north facing window, south facing? If it's south facing, do you have any shading for that window? Is there going to be too much sun coming in and heating the space up?
And obviously we need to pay attention to the curb appeal and what the outside looks like, but what are we seeing from inside the house? What's our views?
Yeah. And it's like, the views out as well. Like, you're looking at the neighbor's wall. Yeah. Like, do you want to look at the neighbor's wall?
Why do we fight so hard to put a window that's looking at your neighbor that's 4 feet away?
Yeah. But yeah, let's say maybe you're a morning person and you're like, I want the window in the east. So in the morning, I'm getting sunlight. Maybe not. Maybe we put it on another wall because you don't want the sun coming in first thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess there's a lot of things where people look at an elevation and they're like, oh, I feel like a window needs to go here to balance things out, right? If we have one on the right, we should have one on the left. But if the one on the left is going to impact the person in the bedroom that's using the space in a negative way, then maybe we don't want one on the left. And maybe it is a time for asymmetry and where you just have one window in the corner versus having two symmetrical on the front.
I agree with you, Paul. Does that surprise you?
A little bit. Because usually you're like, well, we have one here. Let's put another one here and make it even balanced,
Well, balance is different than some symmetry.
Hand in hand.
Yeah.
There's synonyms, I think. I'll have to check.
We still want to balance the architecture.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. No, I mean, I agree. No, I agree with you there. Like, I'm not saying I disagree, but I guess just as long as we're being thoughtful when looking at those things, because like everything has a place, symmetry has a place, balance has a place, the flow. I mean, like where the natural light's coming from, time of day for the light, the view out.
You're right.
All of those things from one window placement.
Which why I think doing our headset and having, or at least giving that immersed experience is beneficial, because sometimes it's hard for clients to imagine this, right?
Yeah. So I think we've covered quite a bit. I think we're getting close to the end of our list.
Got one more?
Yeah. Which is that? It's like
I like this.
It's like a plus and a minus, right?
Yeah.
A good and a bad.
Hyper personalization versus broad public appeal.
Yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about like clients' desires and wants and needs. So it's like, it depends. Like if you're going to be living in this house for 10, 20 years,
go for it.
By all means, you still have an eye towards the future, maybe where you sell or downsize or relocate or whatever, because you don't want to make it overly specified to you. It's like you're always, what you said, like compromise before. There's always other considerations to think of. You can definitely go for it and make it more specific.
Well, think about who you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years too, because you might be in a neighborhood where you want to stay there forever, right?
Yeah.
And you might be locked in at 3% on your mortgage. And there could be a number of different circumstances that could come into play here. But, I think designing the space, considering your specific tastes, is important, but I think the most important is the flexibility of the space, right?
Yeah. Well, especially when you get to the other group of individuals, people that are, looking to have like a short-term rental, they're making an investment in the property and they're looking for this broad mass appeal, Well, you don't want to like alienate people from.
I think that's more on the seller side. Like if you're going to flip a house or you're looking to sell a property,
especially if you're going to flip it.
Yeah. I think a truly unique space that would be off-putting to some. It's more of a benefit for a short-term rental, because people are like, hey, I want to get in this crazy space and experience it.
Yeah. I like if you have like a slide or like a hidden whatever, like cigar room or something or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Hidden wine cellar where it's like behind a bookshelf.
Let's go.
Yeah. I think something like that. Sure. I'm just thinking like if it's still an investment, what if you don't keep that property and rent it out for, right? What if 2 years from now you're like, I want to expand my portfolio into bigger and better things. I need to sell this house and get multifamily.
But some things are timeless and still a good investment, like accessibility. That's good for you in the future, and it's good for everybody else also. So there's just integrated design. Like there's certain things that are just universal design. Some of these things are just going to be, it's smart, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't necessarily cost a lot of money to do either.
Yeah. So it just depends on what your goals are. Part of it's desires and wants, but it also depends on goals in 5-10 years down the road. So
I guess the from a high level here, some good solid advice would be have more thoughtful conversations about the spaces we're designing, right?
100%. You just need to weigh the future potential against like what you need right now, and just be thoughtful about what you're doing and what you're implementing within that space.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's a good closing line.
I agree with you, Paul. So we'll end it right there, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
And if and I was sorry.
That was my closing line, Paul.
All right,
that was it.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be cut off right there.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you find yourself in any of these pitfalls, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help at any design stage that you're in. So
that's a very good point, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, if you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Again, I mentioned before the design consultation, reach out to us, have us come out, and we'll definitely chime in. And now with that.
Well, I'm going to let you take it this time.
All right. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. This has been the ArcFluence Podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.